Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The absence of Stella resonated through the house, a silent reminder that change had visited and left its mark. Roman stood at the threshold of her room, a voyeur gazing upon the vestiges of his sister's life. The ballet posters, the Broadway dreams, and the vibrant quotes adorning the walls, now witnesses to her pursuit of a distant goal. Dust particles danced in the afternoon light, streaming across the untouched bed, casting an ethereal glow, transforming the room into a shrine for the sister who pursued her passions. 4 weeks had elapsed since Roman bid farewell to his sister, aiding her in packing her entire life into a vehicle bound for Juilliard. His parents, now free birds on an extended post-parental vacation, had left him in this state of post-departure reflection.
"A peculiar launch,"
Roman whispered, the words blending with his unspoken thoughts. The pandemic had made the arrangement practical. Then, it just became comfortable. Too comfortable. He stepped into Stella's room, feeling like an intruder despite having her explicit permission to use the space however you want. His sister had always been generous that way. They'd been close growing up, unusual for siblings with such different interests. While she pirouetted through life, he preferred the solitude of his drawing tablet. The closet door stood slightly ajar. Roman knew he should probably start clearing some of her abandoned things to make room for his office supplies. Their parents had mentioned converting the space into his design studio, now that he was taking on more freelance work. He pulled the door open, revealing a rack half filled with clothes she'd deemed unworthy of her new life. Old summer dresses, cardigans from high school, shirts that had shrunk in the wash. Below them sat several shoeboxes and a pile of footwear she'd outgrown or worn out. A flash of pink caught his eye. A pair of ballet flats pushed to the back corner. He reached for them, remembering how Stella had worn them constantly 2 summers ago. They were her favorite until she'd replaced them with a nearly identical pair in a different shade. Why would she leave these? He wondered aloud, turning the soft pink shoe in his hand. The leather was worn, but still supple, with barely noticeable scuffs on the rounded toes. Unlike her serious dance shoes, these were everyday flats, the kind she'd slip on for errands or casual outings. Without fully understanding the impulse, Roman lowered himself to the floor and placed the shoes in front of him. They seemed so delicate compared to his bulky running shoes. On a whim, a curious impulse he wouldn't have indulged if anyone else were home, he slipped off his socks and tried sliding his right foot into one of the flats. To his surprise, it fit. Not perfectly, but close enough that he could actually wear it. He'd always had narrow feet for a man, but he hadn't expected to share a shoe size with his sister. He slid the other one on and stood up carefully, feeling oddly vulnerable. The flats hugged his feet in an unfamiliar but not uncomfortable way. He took a tentative step, then another, watching his feet move across the carpet. There was something about the way they made him feel, lighter somehow, as if the physical sensation of wearing them had mentally transported him into someone else's life. Someone more graceful, perhaps. Someone like Stella.
"This is ridiculous,"
he whispered, but didn't immediately take them off. Instead, he walked to Stella's full-length mirror and looked at himself. Navy shirt, jeans, and incongruously delicate pink ballet flats. He should have looked absurd. He should have felt embarrassed. Instead, a strange sense of rightness washed over him, as if he'd discovered something that had been waiting to be found. Roman quickly removed the shoes, placing them back exactly where he'd found them. He closed the closet door and left the room, his heart beating faster than normal. But that night, as he lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, all he could think about were those pink ballet flats and the peculiar feeling of completion they had momentarily given him. 3 days later, Roman found himself back in Stella's room, the pink ballet flats in his hands again. He'd tried to forget about them, but the memory lingered, drawing him back like a puzzle he needed to solve. This time, he didn't just put on the shoes. After slipping them onto his feet, he turned his attention to the clothes still hanging in her closet. His fingers brushed against a white sundress with small blue flowers printed across the fabric. It had always been one of his favorite pieces in her wardrobe. He'd complimented her on it once, and she'd beamed with such delight that the memory still made him smile. Before he could talk himself out of it, Roman took the dress off the hanger. The material felt cool and lightweight in his hands. With movements that felt both terrifying and exhilarating, he pulled his t-shirt over his head and stepped out of his jeans. The dress slipped over his head easily. It was loose in some places, tight in others, but it covered him. He smoothed the fabric down over his chest and hips, then slowly turned to face the mirror. The person staring back wasn't quite Roman, but wasn't quite someone else either. The dress hung a bit awkwardly on his frame, but there was something about the overall effect that made his breath catch. The white fabric contrasted with his summer tan, and the blue flowers matched his eyes in a way he'd never noticed when Stella wore it.
"Who are you?"
he whispered to his reflection. He spent an hour in front of that mirror, trying different poses, walking back and forth, watching the dress move around him. When he finally changed back into his regular clothes, his hands trembled slightly. He carefully hung the dress exactly as he'd found it, and placed the ballet flats in their corner. But, as the days passed, Roman found himself creating excuses to be alone in the house, to return to Stella's room, to try on different combinations of her abandoned clothes. A yellow cardigan paired with one of her skirts, a light blue blouse with white jeans that miraculously fit him, always finishing the outfit with those pink ballet flats that had started it all. Each time, he stayed in the clothes a little longer. Each time, the initial strangeness faded more quickly, replaced by a sense of peace he'd never experienced before. When his parents returned from their trip, his secret sessions became more carefully timed, planned around their schedules and activities. The need to hide made the experience both more stressful and more precious. Then came the day his mother announced she would be clearing out Stella's old clothes to donate them. "She won't need these now," she said over breakfast, spreading jam on her toast. "And it's silly to keep a whole closet of things no one wears." Roman felt his stomach drop.
"I could do it for you,"
he offered, trying to keep his voice casual. "Box everything up. You're busy with your book club this week anyway." His mother smiled gratefully. "Would you? That would be so helpful. Just separate anything that looks valuable or sentimental, and the rest can go to the women's shelter downtown." That night, Roman sorted through the clothes with careful deliberation. The most worn items, things Stella truly wouldn't miss, went into the donation box. But many pieces, including the white sundress, the yellow cardigan, and, of course, the pink ballet flats, were tucked into the back of his own closet, hidden behind winter coats and storage boxes. He told himself it was temporary, that he would stop once the novelty wore off, that this strange compulsion would fade if he just indulged it a little longer. But in his heart, he was beginning to understand that something fundamental had shifted. That the person he saw in those clothes wasn't just Roman playing dress-up. It was someone who had always existed within him, waiting for permission to emerge. 6 months passed. Winter arrived, bringing snow that transformed their neighborhood into a quiet, insular world. Roman's graphic design business grew steadily, allowing him to work from his newly established home office, formerly Stella's bedroom, though he'd kept her posters and several personal touches. The clothes he'd rescued from donation had gradually migrated from their hiding place to a special section of his closet. He'd added to the collection cautiously, ordering items online that arrived in discreet packaging: a pair of black tights, a burgundy sweater dress, more pairs of ballet flats in different colors, though none felt as special as that first pink pair. He only wore these clothes when he was absolutely certain of his privacy, sometimes just for an hour in the evening when his parents went out. Occasionally, blissfully, for entire weekends when they visited relatives. During one such weekend, Roman, dressed in Stella's white sundress despite the winter chill, the house thermostat turned up to compensate, received an unexpected video call from his sister. He nearly rejected it, panic flooding his system, but realized at the last moment that she couldn't see him until he accepted the call. Quickly, he threw on his navy blue robe over the dress and made sure the neckline wasn't visible before answering. "Hey, big brother?" Stella's face filled the screen, her blonde hair, so similar to his own, pulled back in a messy bun. The same shade that ran in their family, though his was cut short in what their mother called a professional style. "Stella, how's the big city treating you?" He adjusted his position, acutely aware of the sundress beneath his robe. "Exhausting and amazing." She laughed, then peered closer at the screen. "Are you in my old room? It looks different." "Yeah, it's my office now," Mom insisted. Stella's eyes wandered over what she could see of the background. "You kept my dance posters up?" Roman felt heat rise to his face.
They're inspiring. Creative energy and all that.
"That's
really sweet."
Her expression softened. "Hey, is that my old robe?" His heart skipped. He hadn't realized. The navy blue robe had been hanging in her bathroom for years. He'd taken to wearing it over his borrowed clothes for quick trips to the kitchen or bathroom, appreciating how it could instantly conceal evidence of his secret. "Oh yeah, Mom was going to throw it out, but it seemed wasteful. It's comfortable." He shrugged, aiming for nonchalance. Stella smiled. "It looks better on you anyway. My shoulders were always too narrow for it." She tilted her head. "You seem different, Rome. Happier, maybe?" The old nickname, one only she used, coupled with her observation, made something inside him ache with both longing and fear. "Just busy with work. Finding my groove, I guess." They chatted for another 20 minutes about her classes, his clients, their parents' latest hobbies. When they disconnected, Roman sat staring at the blank screen for a long time, still wrapped in her robe, still wearing her dress underneath, feeling both exposed and unseen. That night, he created a new folder on his computer. He named it Truth and began to write. About the ballet flats, about the clothes, about the person he glimpsed in the mirror who seemed more authentic than the reflection he'd seen his entire life. As spring approached, bringing Stella home for a brief visit during her break, Roman felt increasingly anxious. His collection had grown. His time spent as this other version of himself had expanded. And his certainty that this wasn't just experimentation but discovery had solidified. The afternoon before Stella's arrival, he stood in front of his mirror wearing black leggings, a long burgundy sweater, and the original pink ballet flats. His hair had grown longer. He'd been putting off haircuts, enjoying the way the longer strands softened his face.
"Hello,"
he whispered to his reflection.
"I think your name might be Stella, too."
The words hung in the air, terrifying and liberating. Not his sister's name because it belonged to her, but because somehow, in finding her discarded clothes, he'd also found a hidden part of himself that resonated with the same identity. A strange symmetry that felt both confusing and right. But what would the real Stella think? The question haunted him as he carefully packed away his female clothes, tucking them into storage bins that he labeled winter projects and hid in the back of his closet. For the duration of her visit, he would be just Roman. The brother she'd always known. The deception felt more painful than he'd anticipated. Stella breezed into the house like the force of nature she'd always been, dropping bags in the entryway and embracing their parents with dramatic exclamations about terrible flight attendants and subpar airport food. When she turned to Roman, her hug was fierce and lingering. "Missed you, Rome," she murmured into his shoulder. "Missed you too, Stell Bell." The childhood nickname felt strange on his tongue now, laden with new significance. She pulled back and studied his face. "Your hair's longer." He resisted the urge to touch it self-consciously. "Yeah, been busy. Haven't had time for a cut." "I like it." Her smile was warm. "Suits you." That night, after a family dinner filled with Stella's animated stories about dance company politics and New York adventures, she followed Roman to his room. She hadn't been inside since it had been converted from her bedroom to his office. "So, this is Command Central now," she said, spinning slowly to take in the changes. His desk with dual monitors occupied one wall. The bed had been replaced with a comfortable futon for the occasional all-nighter. Her posters remained, now joined by framed examples of his design work. "It's a good space," he said, watching her carefully. She nodded, trailing her fingers along the edge of his desk. Then she paused, her attention caught by something on the floor, partially hidden beneath the desk. Roman's heart nearly stopped when she bent down and picked up a pink ballet flat, the one that had started everything. It must have fallen out of the storage bin when he'd hastily packed everything away. "My old shoes!" Stella held it up, her expression surprised but pleased. "I wondered what happened to these. They were my favorites for ages." "They were under the bed when I moved in," he lied, his mouth dry. "I meant to ask if you wanted them back." She turned the shoe in her hand, examining it with a fond smile. "Nah, they're pretty worn out, but they were super comfortable." She glanced at him. What were they doing out? Using them as a paperweight or something? The moment stretched between them. Roman could feel sweat breaking out along his hairline. He could laugh it off, make up some excuse, continue hiding, or he could tell the truth. "I wear them sometimes," he said quietly. Stella blinked, the statement clearly not what she'd expected. "You wear them? Like, on your feet?" He nodded, unable to find more words. "Do they fit you?" Her brow furrowed, not in judgment, but in genuine curiosity. "Perfectly," he whispered. Something shifted in her expression, understanding dawning slowly. "Rome, do you wear other things of mine too?" The gentleness in her voice broke something inside him. Months of secrecy and shame and discovery came rushing out as he sank onto the futon, hands trembling. The white sundress with blue flowers, the yellow cardigan. I saved them when Mom wanted to donate everything. The words tumbled out, unstoppable now. I've been buying other things too. Women's clothes. I wear them when no one's home. Stella sat beside him, the ballet flat still in her hand. For how long? Since you left for school. I found the shoes and just wanted to try them on. He couldn't look at her.
I don't know how to explain it.
Maybe you don't have to explain it, she said softly. Maybe it just is. Her acceptance, immediate and unconditional, made his eyes burn with unshed tears.
I don't know what it means about me.
Stella placed the shoe carefully on the floor between them. What does it feel like when you wear these things? Roman closed his eyes, searching for words that could capture the sensation. Like I'm finally seeing clearly. Like all my life, I've been squinting. And suddenly, someone handed me the right prescription. He risked a glance at her.
Does that make any sense?
More than you know. She reached for his hand, squeezing it tightly.
Rome, have you thought that maybe you're trans?
The word hung in the air between them. Of course he'd thought about it. The possibility had grown from a whisper to a persistent hum in his mind over the months. But hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way his private wonderings had not.
I think I might be,
he admitted, but I don't know what to do about it. Stella's smile was gentle. You start by being honest with yourself, which it sounds like you've been doing. She hesitated, then added, What should I call you? Do you still want to be Roman? The question caught him off guard. He hadn't gotten that far in his thinking yet, but now that she asked, the answer rose to his lips with surprising certainty.
Rosalie,
he said. The name had come to him weeks ago, drifting into his consciousness while he was designing a logo and half listening to a documentary about Renaissance art. It had the same first letter as his birth name, but belonged wholly to the person he was discovering himself to be. Rosalie, Stella repeated, testing the sound. Her smile widened. It suits you. For the first time since this journey began, Roman, now Rosalie in this moment of revelation, felt tears spill onto his cheeks. Not tears of confusion or fear, but of profound relief, of being seen. Stella pulled him into a hug, holding him as quiet sobs shook his frame. It's okay, she murmured. Everything's going to be okay. And for the first time, he believed it might be true. The rest of Stella's visit became an unexpected sanctuary. While their parents were present, he remained Roman, but in the privacy of his room, with the door locked and Stella standing guard, he became Rosalie. The dress does look better on you than it ever did on me, Stella admitted, watching as Rosalie twirled in the white sundress with blue flowers. You have the shoulders to really show it off. Rosalie laughed, the sound lighter and more natural than any laugh Roman had ever produced. I'll take that as a compliment. You should! Stella was digging through her suitcase, pulling out various items she'd brought from New York. Here, try this. One of my roommates gave it to me, but the color washes me out completely. She handed over a soft green sweater that Rosalie immediately fell in love with. The material draped perfectly, and the color brought out gold highlights in her growing blonde hair that she'd never noticed before. Keep it, Stella insisted. Consider it the first gift to my sister. The word sister sent a shock of joy through Rosalie's system. Sister. The term fit like the pink ballet flats, perfectly. Before Stella returned to New York, they developed a plan. Rosalie would begin living more authentically in small, private steps, growing her hair longer, researching gender therapists in the area, ordering more clothes that reflected her true self.
"You'll need to tell Mom and Dad eventually,"
Stella said on her last night as they sat cross-legged on the futon drinking hot chocolate.
"But not until you're ready."
Rosalie nodded, cradling her mug.
"I'm scared,"
she admitted.
"Dad's pretty traditional."
"Dad loves you," Stella said firmly.
"They both do. It might take time for them to adjust, but they'll come around, and if they struggle, I'll knock some sense into them." "My fierce defender,"
Rosalie smiled, though anxiety still twisted in her stomach at the thought of that eventual conversation. After Stella left, the house felt different again, but this time, not emptier. Instead, it seemed filled with possibility. Every room contained the potential for Rosalie to exist more fully, to practice moving through the world as herself. In the months that followed, she worked with a gender therapist she found through an online support group. Dr. Matthews helped her navigate her feelings, understand her options, and prepare for the conversations ahead. "There's no rush," Dr. Matthews reminded her during their weekly video sessions.
"This is your journey. You set the pace."
Rosalie's hair grew past her ears, then to her chin. She told her parents she was trying a new style, and while her father raised an eyebrow, neither commented further. Her online clients never saw her in person, so her gradually changing appearance didn't affect her work. She practiced her voice when alone, finding a register that felt natural without sounding affected. She learned about makeup from online tutorials, starting with subtle techniques that wouldn't be immediately noticeable. The pink ballet flats remained her talisman, though she'd acquired other shoes since, practical flats for everyday wear, a pair of low heels for special occasions. None had the emotional significance of that first pair. She kept them on her desk as a reminder of how far she'd come and the sister who had helped make it possible. 1 year after finding those shoes, Rosalie sat her parents down in the living room. Her hair now brushed her shoulders in soft blonde waves. She wore minimal makeup, just enough to enhance rather than transform, and had chosen a simple outfit, jeans, a green sweater, Stella's gift, and, of course, the pink ballet flats. "I have something important to tell you," she began, her heart pounding so hard she feared they might hear it across the room. Her mother reached for her father's hand instinctually, her expression concerned.
"Are you ill, Roman?"
"No, I'm not ill." Rosalie took a deep breath. "But I'm not Roman either. Not anymore." She lifted her chin, summoning courage. "My name is Rosalie. I'm your daughter." The silence that followed felt endless. Her father's face went through a remarkable series of expressions: confusion, shock, disbelief. Her mother's eyes widened, her gaze traveling over Rosalie's appearance, as if seeing it clearly for the first time.
"I don't understand,"
her father finally said, his voice strained.
"I'm transgender, Dad."
The word still felt new on her tongue, but right. Authentic. "I've known for about a year now, but I think on some level, I've always known something wasn't quite fitting."
"A year?"
Her mother's voice rose slightly.
"You've kept this from us for a year?"
"I needed to be sure," Rosalie explained gently. "I needed to understand it myself before I could explain it to you." What followed was a difficult conversation. Tears from her mother, stunned silence from her father, questions that Rosalie had anticipated, but still found painful to answer. No, This wasn't because of anything they'd done. No, she wasn't confused. Yes, she'd given this enormous thought. Her father eventually stood up and left the room without a word. The soft click of the door closing behind him hurt more than if he'd slammed it. Her mother wiped her eyes. "You have to give us time," she said. "This is a lot to process." "I know." Rosalie had expected this reaction, had prepared for it with Dr. Matthews. Understanding didn't make it hurt less, but it helped her maintain composure. "I've had a year to come to terms with it. You're just finding out now." Her mother reached across the space between them and took her hand. "No matter what, you're our child. We love you. That doesn't change." The words were like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters. Her mother might not fully understand yet, but she wasn't rejecting her. It was a start. That night, Rosalie called Stella to report on how the conversation had gone. "Dad walked out," she said, curled on her bed with her phone pressed to her ear. "Mom cried but said they still love me. Dad will come around," Stella insisted. "He just needs time to adjust his mental picture. Remember how long it took him to accept that I wasn't going to law school?" Rosalie laughed softly. "This is a bit bigger than your career choice." "The principle is the same. He has expectations, and when reality doesn't match them, he needs time to recalibrate." Stella's confidence was reassuring. "What matters is that you've taken this step. You're living your truth now, Rosie. No more hiding." The nickname, a diminutive of Rosalie that no one had used yet, brought a fresh wave of emotion. "No more hiding," she agreed, her voice thick with unshed tears. Over the following weeks, her home life settled into an uneasy new normal. Her mother made visible efforts, asking questions about Rosalie's therapy, correcting herself when she used the wrong name or pronouns, even offering to go clothes shopping together. Her father was more reserved, speaking to her politely but briefly, avoiding prolonged conversations or eye contact. 3 months after her disclosure, Rosalie legally changed her name. The process was surprisingly straightforward. Paperwork filed at the county courthouse, a brief appearance before a judge, a modest fee. When the official certificate arrived in the mail, she framed it and hung it beside her desk. Rosalie Stella Winters. Her new middle name a tribute to the sister who had helped make this possible. She updated her driver's license, bank accounts, and professional profiles. Some clients noticed the change and inquired politely. She provided a simple explanation that she was transgender and had recently completed her legal name change. To her relief, not a single client dropped her services. Several sent supportive messages. At 6 months, she began hormone therapy under medical supervision. The changes were gradual: skin softening, subtle shifts in fat distribution, emotional landscapes altered in ways both challenging and illuminating. Each transformation brought her physical self closer to the woman she knew herself to be. The most unexpected breakthrough came on a rainy Sunday afternoon, 10 months after she'd come out to her parents. Her father knocked on her bedroom door, something he rarely did anymore. "Do you have a minute?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. Rosalie nodded, gesturing to the chair beside her desk. She was dressed simply in leggings and an oversized sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, feet bare. She'd been working on a client project all morning. Her father sat down heavily, looking uncomfortable but determined. He held a small photo album in his hands.
"Your mother's been after me to clean out the attic,"
he began, his eyes fixed on the album rather than on her. "I found this." He opened it, revealing photographs she'd never seen before.
"These are pictures of my cousin Eleanor."
Rosalie leaned forward, curious. The photos showed a tall woman with a confident smile, dressed in the fashions of the late 1970s.
"I never told you about Eleanor because, well, when I was growing up, my parents didn't approve of her."
He cleared his throat.
"She was born Edward, my father's brother's son."
Understanding dawned slowly. Eleanor was transgender? Her father nodded, still not meeting her eyes.
"Back then, people didn't talk about it the way they do now. My parents called it Edward's problem. They refused to use her new name or acknowledge the change at all."
He turned a page in the album.
"I was in college when she transitioned. We weren't close, but I remember thinking how much happier she looked afterward. How much more herself."
He finally looked up, his eyes damp.
"After you told us, I kept thinking about Eleanor, about how my parents treated her, about how I didn't stand up for her because I was young and afraid of disappointing them."
His voice broke slightly. "I don't want to make the same mistake with you." Rosalie felt tears spill onto her cheeks.
"Dad."
"I'm trying,"
he said simply.
"I don't understand everything about this. I'm from a different generation. But I love you, and I want you to be happy. If being Rosalie makes you happy, then that's who you are."
He held out the photo album.
"I thought you might like to have this. Eleanor passed away about 15 years ago. Cancer. But she lived her life on her terms. She was brave. Like you."
Rosalie took the album with trembling hands, this unexpected gift more precious than anything she could have imagined.
"Thank you, Dad. This means everything."
Her father stood awkwardly, then leaned down and placed a kiss on the top of her head, something he hadn't done since she was a small child.
"Dinner's at 6,
he said, his voice rougher than usual.
"Your mother's making lasagna."
After he left, Rosalie sat for a long time looking through the photos of Eleanor, this unknown relative who had walked a similar path decades earlier. In one picture, Eleanor stood on a beach, arms outstretched to the sky, joy radiating from her entire being. On the back, someone had written,
"Eleanor, finally free. Cape Cod, 1981.
Rosalie placed the photo beside her computer monitor, a new talisman to accompany the pink ballet flats that still held a place of honor on her desk. 2 years after finding those shoes in the back of Stella's closet, Rosalie stood in front of her full-length mirror, barely recognizing the person she had once been. Her blonde hair now fell past her shoulders in gentle waves. The hormone therapy had softened her features and reshaped her body in subtle but significant ways. The green dress she wore, bought specifically for this occasion, highlighted her emerging curves while flattering her height. "You look amazing," Stella said from her perch on the bed. She had flown in specifically for this weekend, Rosalie's first public outing as herself at a gallery showing of her graphic design work. Rosalie smoothed her hands over the dress, nervousness and excitement battling in her stomach.
"Do you think anyone will recognize me from before?"
"Does it matter if they do?" Stella countered, standing to adjust the thin gold necklace around her sister's neck. "You're not hiding anymore. You're introducing the world to who you've always been." Their parents were waiting downstairs, her mother fussing over refreshments for the pre-gallery family dinner, her father pretending to watch baseball, but sneaking proud glances whenever Rosalie entered the room. The journey hadn't been perfectly smooth, but they had all arrived at a place of acceptance that sometimes felt miraculous. Rosalie slipped on the final touch to her outfit, a new pair of ballet flats, not pink this time, but a deep emerald green that matched her dress, The original pink pair remained retired, preserved like a precious artifact in their box on her bookshelf. "Those are gorgeous," Stella commented, nodding at the shoes. "They're comfortable too." Rosalie smiled, thinking of how far she'd come from that first curious moment of slipping her feet into Stella's discarded flats. Practical for standing at the gallery all evening. Always the pragmatist. Stella laughed, linking her arm through Rosalie's. "Ready to dazzle the art world?" "Ready to be myself," Rosalie answered. And she was. The gallery lights illuminated her work, designs that had evolved and deepened along with her personal transformation. In the vibrant atmosphere of the art gallery, Rosalie's solo exhibition marked a profound conclusion to her transformative journey. Among the admirers, Rosalie exuded an air of contentment and authenticity, a stark contrast to the life she had once led in the shadow of Roman. Rosalie's reflection in the window served as a symbolic testament to her evolution. Attired in emerald green, the color of renewal and growth, she stood resplendent, embodying the essence of self-discovery. Each smile, each inquiry, and each appreciative glance reinforced her newfound sense of self, obliterating any lingering remnants of her past life. The ballet flats, like silent confidants, guided her graceful strides across the polished floor, echoing the rhythm of her journey. These shoes, now an integral part of her narrative, held the tale of an unexpected awakening, a catalyst hidden in the mundane act of discovering another's forgotten treasure. The completion of this chapter of Rosalie's life was a symphony of synchronicity. The discarded pink shoes, once symbols of a life unfulfilled, had set in motion a chain of events that ultimately led her here.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!